Resume. We're recording. We're live with Gary Bender, founder and CEO of the CFO Solution. You got me, Paul Siegert. I'm not as financially educated as Gary, but I've learned a lot working with him, and I'm excited that we're able to host these together. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time introducing him. You've probably attended some of these before, but if you haven't, he has a long and deep list of solutions, best practices that he's been sharing with CFOs for many years. So excited to do it again today.
Paul, thank you. And thanks for hosting the group. For those folks around the country, Justin Thomas is leading the PGA, and it's snowing in Denver. So you guys got to figure that one out and explain it to me. But we're going to talk. We're going to talk about two things today, two 25-minute vignettes. We're going to go 100 miles an hour. If you have a question, hit chat. I'll try to look at it, but I'm literally driving myself and doing 100 miles an hour while we do this. So all of these slides are available at our website, but let me just do a quick flyby. CFO Solution has been around about 10 years. It's a bunch of CFOs with, gosh, hundreds of years of experience between us. And we share best practices from CFOs, controllers, et cetera, around the country. And we document it in something called the CFO Solution.org website. And as you can see, we don't think we know everything, even collectively, but we share it and instigate the discussions, and we're glad to help people. We're not a consulting service. I'm not an accounting firm. In fact, I don't invoice. So after 8 years, we've invoiced 3 people because they insisted we do it because they were too busy. We try to coach each other, help each other, and we promise that we won't embarrass you or compromise you as a CFO or a controller. We're here to help. If bottom line is, Paul has asked me to take sessions we spend anywhere from 2 to 8 hours on face-to-face with our groups in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. By the way, I'm located just outside of Philadelphia. I have a full-time job as CFO of a skyscraper engineering firm in New York. So I am not a polished speaker. I'm not an expert in anything I talk about. I merely summarize what our subject matter experts present to our groups. We've done 75 sessions in the last 7 years. And what Paul has graciously done for you folks is created a portal on our website. And you'll see this at the back of the prezo today. But basically, you go to thecfosolution.org. You'll see portals in the upper right-hand corner. You'll see PCS, which is Paul Siegert's company. You'll see PCS. Click on that. That will take you behind the curtain to see not only these executive summary Zoom recordings and slides, but you'll also have access to everything we've done in the last 8 years. And we've reorganized it, so it's actually a little easier to find stuff by category, as well as taking you to the presentations and work sessions we've done. So we've done these topics. I'm not going to read the slide to people, but these are topics that affect private company CFOs, and it's not just the debits and credits. We're talking about human capital, and we're talking about energy. And today we're going to talk about cybersecurity. So first of all, if you have a CIO or an IT manager, do not delegate this to them, because this is a risk issue. And end of the day, in my humble opinion, is the CFO owns risk. I don't care what your organization chart says. When the stuff hits the fan, CFO's in the conversation. If you haven't prepared for it, your successor will do a better job than you did. Okay. So have a plan, manage it. I've been cautioned by the legal advisors, never call it a breach, because breach suggests negligence, and then you're going to get sued for even more than you're going to get sued by. So call it an incident. And by the way, most of us, and again, I'm in a small engineering firm, a limited set of customers. We don't do credit card transactions. We don't sell stuff. But I've learned by doing these sessions and talking to smart people that even I should be scared, even with a very good CIO in the company. I should be scared because people can take advantage of a B2B business and steal our information, et cetera. We'll talk about that. Startling metrics. Reported cybercrime 7 years ago was $400 million. This is what you and I reported to insurance companies and estimated what the Wall Street Journal picked up, et cetera, for the TJ Maxx, Target, Facebook breaches. Okay. The last estimate we have that's any good is almost 3 years old. It was $2 trillion. The insurance carriers think it was $4 trillion of losses for cybercrime, losses and expenses. It's unimaginable. But let's just understand how does it get to be that large? I just pulled 3 of the reported breaches for last year. And I'm using the word breach because there was negligence involved in all of these. You would think that Facebook and especially Microsoft would understand system security and controls. You can see here, 3 breaches, just these 3, they happen to be the largest ones last year. 1 billion records were lost. So a record is your identity, your birth date, your credit card information, your passwords, whatever. 1 billion records were lost just in 3 breaches. Staggering. Again, repeating a little bit here, folks, it's not just hackers going after the Facebooks with 1 billion users to try to get 500 million bits of data on 500 million clients. That's where I thought it was. All honesty, I'm not an IT guy. I'm not an expert. It's never happened to me in my engineering company. I'll tell you in a minute, it did happen to me in a small consumer goods business over 10 years ago. But I'll use most of us on this call as the 20 to $100 million companies. People will hack my system, your system, and simply use it as a bus stop. To you and me, it's a bus stop to get to somebody else. The cyber crimes might have 5 or 10 relays, so they can't track it back to communist China or Korea or Berkeley, California, where these hackers are sitting, but they can never get it back to their IP because they hack into people like you and me, into our system. They never come after our information. They literally sit on our site and funnel their bad actions through our IP. Many of us don't know if we've been used as a bus stop, okay? And even if you know it, okay, many don't report it because you didn't have a claim to your cyber insurance. You didn't take it seriously. Ironically, we could all be an accessory in a crime and not know it. So if that's not staggering enough, the practical nature is, and I hope that everybody on this call has cyber insurance at some minimal coverage. What used to be minimal coverage was pretty cheap with a pretty low deductible. I'm talking about thousands of dollars a year for maybe $200,000 or $500,000 of coverage, maybe a $5,000 or $10,000 deductible, maybe a handful of questions, from your business broker to complete your application. No visits, no audits, no spoofing, no hacking, and you would get coverage, kind of like you get coverage for buying another company vehicle. Okay. Now it's at a point where the cyber insurance firms don't even investigate claims under $500,000. So if your company gets hacked and you have a $50,000 deductible, which is common these days, so all of a sudden the deductible went from $5,000 to $50,000 and your premium quadrupled and your coverage is much narrower than you used to have, consider yourself lucky if you can buy cyber insurance without a system security plan in place and a dedicated IT person or an IT resource backing you up. So first of all, if I'm gonna rob your company, whatever that means, if I'm gonna break in and rob your house and the police don't even get called up to $500,000, there's not a lot of risk as a criminal. It's actually much easier to break into your company than to rob a gas station. Okay, because you can go online and buy software to teach you how to hack for $500 to $1,000 for a subscription, and you even get a help desk to help you. This is the beauty of, thank the people in Russia and China and Korea, and who knows where else they're hiding. But this is when state-run cyber, activities get commercialized, and you can literally buy software and it'll teach you how to hijack and get ransoms paid, and it all goes through their help desk. So they get the money in your account. They take their slice of it. You get your money probably in Bitcoin, and you and I, as the CFO sitting in this call, have no idea what happened. It's literally, if you look at the growth curve in computing, and we had some first-class experts, sit down with our group for a couple hours last week. I'll just digress for a second. Guy in his late 50s, enlisted in the Marines at 17 years old. So call it 38 to 40 years ago, he enlisted in the Marines. They put him in an internal controls unit. Never saw combat in all those years. He became a cyber geek. He wound up running cyber for about half a DOD, then went to work for United Nations on a task force. And like he said, he had short hair when he came out of the Marines. Now he has gray hair from working on cyber on a global basis. But he has started a first-class company on cybersecurity. And back on the slide point here, the highest growth curve in IT has been the growth of cybercrime, faster than the introduction of chips, the speed of chips, the cost of a PC, the cost of computing power, et cetera, et cetera. The growth curve in cyber crimes blows away the technology changes we've seen in the last 20 years. So if you haven't reached for a drink as cocktail hour starts somewhere in the country, hang on for the ride here. Who's doing it? I alluded to some of this. These are individuals, organized crime, military state, unemployed and bored people. Cybercrime went up during COVID because people were sitting at home collecting a check, maybe didn't have enough money, or maybe just mad at their employer. Maybe you heard, why don't you just do this for a couple $100 you can buy a seat. Interesting statistics which staggered me. Employee insiders now comprise 20% of the breaches. So these are either disgruntled current employees, former employees that might still have a password, might know a password if they're no longer an employee, and they're hacking employers for one of two reasons. Maybe there's more than that, but the two primary reasons. One is they don't like their boss. The company cut back their hours. The company made them pay more for healthcare. The company's making them come into the office now. So how can I blow up the company? How can I get mad at my boss or get even with my boss? I'll either steal information. So now picture that you've got credit card transactions or bank accounts around the country, expense payment cards. They'll sell that information off to somebody in this dark side network, okay, where they don't do the breach. It's very common to find a current employee now being paid a couple $1,000s a month to just strip off information to somebody who they don't know. They literally get a wire or an envelope full of $100 in their home mailbox to just keep sending information every month. When they stop, the cash stops. Okay, so they just feel they're getting even with somebody. There's an anecdote, but it's scary as hell. The dark side people will surf Facebook and other chat rooms, if you will, to listen to somebody complaining that inflation's killing them. I'm not sure I can put gas in the car. I don't know what I'm going to do financially. And they'll get a note, hey, we'll pay you $500 or $1,000 a month just to open. What it boils down to is, I'd like to help you. We can offer you part-time work at $20, $30, $40 an hour in your convenience. Can you give me your email address? I can't send it through Facebook. Give me your work email address and I'll send you the email. As soon as you open it up, you never see the cash, because as soon as you open this email, they have buried the link into your system. So the financially distraught employee kind of ignores it, laughs it off, and they never even got the $500 to open up your network to the bad guy. So that's an invited phishing attack. They were waiting for the email to open it. The next level is you find somebody that's skeptical, and it's real simple. Hey, Paul, I'll pay you $500 to open the email and then delete it. Okay, and I'm paying you $500. I just want to get some information about your company's suppliers or your whatever. And they ask a simple question, say, I want to see what your security is like. Open this email, and I'll mail you a $500 gift card. And all of a sudden you're hacked. Now, ironically, this is information from 6 months ago. The analysis was, the presentation was just done to our group in April, but this is before Russia threatened to, get even with anybody helping Ukraine. So it hasn't gotten any better. How do they hack? Why do they hack? They'll enter your network through malware or phishing. I just gave an example of a phishing, an intentional phishing attempt. Other phishing attempts, we all get them every day. What's the number one takeaway when you talk to the IT side is you have to do system updates. They happen literally every day, every week, from your provider, Microsoft, SAP. If your IT people are ignoring patches, you have to make it a top priority, to do patches and updates. If IT doesn't know how to do it or don't have the time to do it, outsource it. There's partners around. We have partners that we work with. Outsource it to them. It's hundreds of dollars or $1,000 a month to have a third party manage your firewall, manage your patches. Ironically, if you're working with a third party expert, it might be the difference between you being able to buy cyber insurance, or it might, paying them $1,000 a month might reduce your premium by $5,000 or $10,000 a year. So the insurance carriers want to see expert security people, not just your IT guy who comes in a couple of days a week, or your programmer who also manages your network. It's just too important. I alluded to this, but I'll come back to this point. A lot of us don't have, the large client customer databases where we have, Amazon accounts, PayPal accounts, credit card accounts, home addresses, middle initials, emails on file. We just don't have it. We're B2B businesses, or we're whoever. Some hackers just want to shut down your servers. Some want to intercept it and intercept all your emails from a certain place and send it to another website who wants to. There are firms out there that will say, I want to penalize all my competitors in this industry and slow them down, shut them down, but in the meantime, direct their emails on bids or on invoices to me. And there's people that will do it. And other times it's the traditional, let's go steal identity, usernames, passwords, and go get mortgages, car loans, or clean out your bank account or your ATM account. You got to give them credit for creativity. I mean, these people have nothing to do but figure out ways to take your value. Again, this is beyond just IT. IT has to do the maintenance and the patches and the software updates. They own that, either in-house or outsource it. Second part is where the CFO has to step up with the rest of the management team, is you have to change and manage and try to improve employee behavior. It is so easy to open an email about the Sweet 16, pool, or the whatever meme comes about, either mocking Trump or mocking Biden. We all see them around there. You open those, half of them are phishing attempts. Everybody hates multiple identification on your company phone or whatever, getting into your office remotely, but you need dual identification. You need to enforce password changes, even if it's your boss or if it's you. If your password doesn't change every 90 days, IT ought to lock you out of the system, even if you're the owner of the company. Set the standard, run the spoofs, and don't use it as a training process to remind employees. Don't threaten employees. You want employees to understand security and security for the company. Coming back to CFOs, stop being cheap on providing upgrade capital and upgrade expense and outsource expense. Nobody likes to spend the money. I'm the cheapest CFO you're ever going to meet. Paul will tell you that. All my friends will tell you that. But we spend money on IT. It protects our intellectual property, protects our reputation. Come back to, I was picking on miscreant employees, the insiders, sometimes intentionally, sometimes for whatever reason. People are people. It's a human issue. IT can't help find disgruntled employees. There are IT tricks to make it harder. In other words, it is very, very easy for IT to block all Facebook from company devices. Employees will complain about it, but keep in mind, 1% of our employees use Facebook for marketing purposes. The other 99% Facebook users are not working when they should be working, or using a company provided phone or laptop for non-company business. All the things that are beyond IT, these are controls, culture of the company. Bringing it back to why am I directing this at my fellow CFOs and controllers? Risk management's the CFO's job. Here's a short list of the risks that cyber goes after. We're going to talk about the first one in a minute. Regulatory compliance. The regs are changing every month. Obviously, they can steal your IP, they can steal your contract language, they can steal your bids, they can shut your business down and then ransom you to pay it back. Good luck in beating ransomware. Obviously, they can destroy your customers, they can destroy your suppliers, your reputation. The number I heard was when TJ Maxx lost, over 100,000 customer credit card data bits. So 100,000 customers records were stolen. That it cost them an average of $40,000 per customer to recover. The irony was the director of IT was not fired. They made him stick around to fix what the shortcuts he took. Basically, they fired the CIO. The director in charge of IT security said, you got a choice. You can stay here and clean up your mess. You're not getting promoted to the CIO job, obviously. But if you leave, your reputation is dead in the marketplace. The CIO took the bullet for your screw ups. So the director had to stay there and clean it up. Not so nice, but TJ Maxx almost went out of business because of it. That's probably 7-8 years ago. And then finally, the technology risk to your company. They can basically strip off your software, steal your files, corrupt your files, and you're damn near out of business. I told you that I was hit about 10 years ago. We had a customer service group that came in at 7:30 in the morning and worked till 4 or 5 o'clock. And we had a West Coast operation. So we needed to find somebody who would come in at noon and work until 8. And we found the perfect client. Years of customer service experience and selling parts and repair orders, et cetera, et cetera. And he also spoke Spanish, which worked for our West Coast, California clients. The interesting part was when the other 7 went home at 4:30, he talked them into leaving all their desktops open in case their customer called. He would handle it for them so they didn't have a voicemail in the morning to deal with. So every night when he was there alone from 7 till 8 o'clock, he basically kited off credit card information and bank information for our largest customers and sold that information. He stayed for 6 months. He was such a good candidate. We didn't run a background check. We found out that he was as phony as the day is long and part of a sophisticated crime ring that would move around, never stayed more than 6 months, always had a woe is me story about sick mom, sick dad, sick kid. found out he was making a lot more getting paid by the dark side than we were paying him in salary. So on this slide, you need to buy cyber, if nothing else, just to remain in business after you get hacked. 30% of companies that are hacked are out of business 2 years later. It destroys, we talked about it on the previous slide, it destroys too many elements of your business to again, 30% of the time you don't recover. The insurance carrier can't make the changes in culture, behavior, controls, software, or manage the inside risk. So insurance is just insurance. It doesn't help you improve. You're going to pay a lot more. You're going to pay a lot more for a lot less if you can get it. And the buzzword is you're going to need an SSP. So since you don't know what SSP stands for, because I didn't, you need to have a system security plan. And the driver for that is, and most of us remember when ISO came out and ISO 9000 procedures and controls were needed. The new buzzwords are NIST 800, and the sections are section 53 and 171. And then ISO's gotten in the game too. So we've graduated from ISO 9000 to ISO 27001. These are the guidelines to create cybersecurity plans and frameworks. So don't Google it, just go get NIST, and they're going to show you the checklist and the formats for what you have to do, what you have to have. Now, part of it are best practices and best practice suggestions. If you do any business with federal agencies, DOD, DEP, FDA, if you're doing Medicare billing, rebilling, et cetera, you have to have NIST plans in place. Depending on your size, depending on how many agencies you're talking to, you're going to have more and more levels. And 53, I believe, is the basic, and 171 is where you need a third party to help you do it. Publicly available, you can look at it, you can wring your hands, then go hire an expert. We spent a couple hours on this last month with our cyber geek. So this has basically been an overview. I'd suggest you go to our site, click through the portal, just go to the cyber chapter and go to the most recent one. So I'll take a breath. Paul, you have any good news or bad news you want to add about cyber?
Well, I want to let everyone know we always send a follow-up email after these sessions, and it'll give you the links, everything that you need to be able to connect to the resources that Gary talks about. You did mention, Gary, and I just wanted to reiterate it. You have some vendors. So if somebody was attending today and they wanted kind of a friendly neighbor, hey, here's a great vendor that's helped us with some of this stuff, you could provide that if they reach out to you.
Glad to. We have 201 subject matter expert partners in CFO Solution. We vet these firms. We deal with the senior people. They know when I introduce, hey, expect a call from Paul Siegert. Here's Paul's business. It's an informed, warm introduction. So, when Paul calls, he gets to a senior person. They treat him as a senior executive, as a friend of mine. Like I said, the guys that call my contacts usually are CFOs with their hair on fire. This isn't a cold call. It's like, I don't understand what Gary said. I looked at the slides. Would you walk me through them? They're glad to walk you through them. No cost, no obligation. That's what, and Paul, it's the same as when somebody has a healthcare question. I don't do my own root canals and colonoscopies for healthcare. I send them to my healthcare expert, and that's you.
Yeah.
So that's a good lead into how we work. Let's talk about something a little more common. Did I cut you off, Paul? I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to share a very quick story. I don't want to make us run over time, but I was out at a charity event over the weekend, and the biggest liquor distributor in our area was there. It was an event that had alcohol. They donated some of the alcohol. And I was talking to a very high level person from that company. They just got hacked, ransomware software. They went from being able to deliver 7 million a week of liquor to 1.5 million for 2 months. They chose not to pay the ransom and instead to rebuild their whole infrastructure. It was incredible. The story was just incredible.
So a lot of empty glasses in Nashville that month, huh?
Oh my Lord, can you imagine?
No,
7 to 1.5, just incredible. Yeah. So anyway.
Good. Well, there's some success stories out there. You talked about our partners. We had a small firm 100 miles from here get hacked. They knew of me. They didn't want to have an outside expert. They called me at 7 o'clock on Good Friday night. Hey, Gary, can you introduce me to that guy now? Okay. He had somebody there by 3 o'clock in the morning. They worked 36 hours straight. Another guy came in. They worked 36 hours straight. The ransomware blackmail dropped from $500,000 to $40,000 because by noon Monday, they had the bones of their system up and running it. And the blackmailers were watching it. And they said, they'll never get the last piece up and running. Let's take $40,000 and leave.
Wow.
Okay.
Incredible.
They're now a client of this guy monitoring them 24/7. But they probably spent 300 grand in their losses. And by the way, this guy probably charged them 10 or 15,000 to get back in line. So he saved them 400,000 in blackmail, got them up and running. And most of their customers didn't know about it. Their suppliers knew about it, but at least they saved face. So let's pivot. As we always do, we choose two totally different projects. So we all have an office, a warehouse, a factory that we own or rent. And everybody in the house, like the board, expects you to be managing every dollar, every amount of risk in every facility you have. And I'm going to guess that we all had real estate 101 20, 30 years ago in college. And the real question is, why is it my job to manage our facilities? Okay. So with that sarcasm, let's get started. Facility, cost, risk, strategy, and execution all intersect when you have a building. So financial execs need to be involved. We did a session a couple of months ago about managing strategically. If you've got the flagship office, if it's a perfect location, if it's where your customers or clients want to visit and it's perfectly located, it stuns me why some people have rented that space for 10 or 20 years. Everybody in the place knows if this site turns into a CVS drugstore, our customers won't find us, but yet you continue to rent from the guy who will sell out in a New York minute if CVS wants to buy his property and knock the building down. So we did a special session on that a couple of months ago on strategically managing your facilities and then how to finance them, how to add value to your company by strategically managing key locations or startup locations. A lot of times you've got a sales office or a terminal or a warehouse someplace. You just sort of expect that plant manager or branch manager to just renew the lease, take care of the insurance, take care of the this, take care of the that. And CFO has no idea what's going on with real estate until something bad happens. So that's my view of reality. In our chapter on the website on facility management, we actually have 5 subchapters. One is the kind of the basic finance and the sophisticated strategy of, do I rent, lease, or buy? And and how do I sell? And how do I do a few other things? Okay. And I'm going to run through each of these on later slides. Second one is on location. It's largely what I just talked about, but there's some more bells and whistles on that. Third one's on cost. Fourth one's on tax, which a lot of people don't think through. The fifth one, which is getting a hell of a lot of attention now, is energy usage and cost. Within those 5 subchapters, we have over 50 best practice write-ups. So I'm going to fly through these and encourage you to go to the website under facility management. And there's probably 3 or 4 hour-and-a-half sessions on each of these. And as Paul mentioned, pick up the phone or shoot me an email if you want to chat about it offline. Rent, lease, or buy. Most of us know how to do the rent, lease, buy calculations, IRRs, and then how to finance it. But again, think strategically, think long-term. Comment I made a few minutes ago. If you love the location, if it's strategic, you want to own it. You want to figure out a way to buy it before your lease expires. Okay. If you're not sure about a new location, rent it for a couple of years. But I don't really mean that. I'm not doing the air quotes because my camera's not on. rent it for a couple of years, but include an escape clause where you can leave in 6 months for any reason. And you know what? You might pay 3 or 4 months penalty to break it, but write in, take a 3 or 4 year lease on a new location, maybe a 5-year term, but put an escape clause in it. The landlord, the owner are going to think, hey, we love Paul. He's renting for 5 years, solid company, solid guy. You may not like that location for whatever reason that you can't think of now. You try it for 3 or 6 months, you try it for another 3-month period, you want out. They're saying, I signed a 5-year lease. Go to page 7 for that clause we put in. I'll pay you the 3 months penalty. I'm giving you 3 months notice. And just cover your 6. We've written an entire couple-hour session on this, on how to create value by renting or owning your property. It's been very, very successful for my company on our headquarters office that we rent. We're in the suburbs of Manhattan, so we can't afford to buy a small building there. It doesn't make sense for the size of our company. But we actually go through our experience, our testimonial on that strategically managing real estate session. Second one kind of is second point on location. Before you even think about signing a lease or a letter of intent, make sure you understand any incentives or tax breaks you can get by moving into that locale. They could be job creation tax credits. They could be training fund grants. They could be soft services from the county or the state moving in there. We helped a firm do a location analysis a couple of years ago. The general manager flew in a day early, fell in love with one place because his wife liked the building and the decor. He wound up buying or signing a 5-year lease on a customer service location in the most expensive part of Phoenix, next to Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs' customer service center. He found out his wages were $10,000 a year below the people they fired. He couldn't staff it. And he could have gone 15 miles away and gotten $3.6 million of incentives for creating 60 jobs. As soon as they signed that lease, hadn't even closed on it yet, all incentives were off the table. There are best practices on locations and there's landmines. You don't know it. Your broker's never going to help you. I'll use that example. That broker wanted to sell that dinosaur he had in Scottsdale. Okay. So he didn't tell him that there was other property that's available in Mesa. So much lower cost of living, much easier place to get to traffic wise, blah, blah, blah. And they didn't need the appearance of a Goldman Sachs office across the street. So my point is, a broker's not working for you. A broker's selling what he's got in his used car lot that day. So get an expert. We know experts. We know the questions to ask on picking location. At least ask the questions before you make a bad decision. Next part, understand your lease and the responsibilities as a tenant, the responsibilities of the landlord. All reality is your general counsel is not a real estate expert. We have a real estate expert, admittedly not an attorney, 40 years of experience. He'll review your lease in 48 hours, your proposed lease or your existing lease in 48 hours for a couple $100 and show you all of the gotchas, all of the win and all of the lose clauses. So whether it's your current lease and you want to get out of it, or you're getting jammed on whatever cost they can jam you on, I'm glad to introduce you to our lease expert. I've used them for 20 years on over 100 leases. I've never regretted it. And our corporate counsel and our outside counsel are always surprised that he's not a lawyer. He's just got 40 years of experience doing it. Once you decided to go to a new location, spend the time to get the right services in place. Get the right telecom system, get the right security, and the right means sized right, with the right capacity to grow, what you need at the right cost, at the right exit clauses, at the right, growth clauses. Okay, so basic utilities, there's all kinds of ways to save money and get flexibility that they're never going to offer if you don't know what to ask for. And if you don't know how to do it, use one of our advisors. Okay. The reality is, in the last 5 years, using an advisor for telecom or electricity or waste disposal, you used to have to pay them, and used to put them on a retainer. So if you wanted their services for 12 or 36 months, you got an invoice every month. Now they get paid on the back end by the supplier they pick. So their job is to pick the lowest cost for you. And in full disclosure, they're going to get 0.5% or 1% of the amount you pay. But end of the day, their job is to deliver the best service and the right cost model for you. And we have people that can help you on that. Coming back to understanding your lease, understand the condition of the roof, the parking lot, the lighting. 2 things. If you buy a crappy building, you're going to pay for it, and it's your problem in the lease. If you know the roof is weak, make it a landlord expense, or get a capital limit you can live with, and you do the repairs now, not when the roof is leaking. You have to shut down your business or the roof collapses. Get it covered up front, and then make the right operating decision. But also keep in mind, a facility that's depressing to go to, some of the lights don't work, it's not cool enough in the summer, or it's not warm enough in the winter. Everybody sees that. Your employees see it, your candidates see it, your customers see it. You can spend all you want on advertising. If your facility is a C- facility, you're a C- company in the eyes of your employees, your suppliers, and customers. It's hard enough to recruit and retain employees. Don't make them work in a C- facility. Tax best practices. Let's assume you're in your buildings now. You're paying the property taxes, whether you own it or rent it. You're paying triple net lease. You're paying property taxes. Get an assessment done. See if you're paying more or less than your neighbors. If you're paying less, shut up. If you're paying more, get it reassessed. And use a performance-based advisor, not a real estate attorney who's going to charge you by the hour and charge your retainers. Get somebody who shares in what they can deliver. We work with one of the best firms in the country. They're ridiculously objective. They'll tell you if keep your mouth shut, you're in perfect shape, you're 1 or 2% high, it is not worth the cost for us to go save you a couple percent on your property tax bills. I've used them. When it's been worthwhile to use them, I've saved 15 to 30% on my property tax bill. And keep in mind, they're not reducing the millage rate, they're reducing your assessment. So if your building gets assessed for $8 million instead of the current $10 million assessment, that's a permanent 20% reduction in your property taxes going forward. And just let me digress for a second, give you an example. You buy an existing building that used to be a factory to make pharmaceuticals. Okay, it was a smaller, older building. The pharmaceutical company moved out, and you're now using it as a warehouse. Well, it was assessed 5, 10, 20 years ago as a manufacturing facility, high value add, tech company, Fortune 50 owner. So they paid a lot for the building. The assessor assessed it at damn near close to market 10 years earlier instead of 50% of market. Pfizer or Merck didn't complain. They're billionaire companies. Okay. You come along, you're using it as a warehouse with an attached office for your company's headquarters, and a little bit of assembly, a little bit of a QA area, but you're still being assessed as a manufacturing high-tech factory. I've actually been through this, where I bought a high-tech building from a bankrupt startup company, and we cut our taxes 30%. Okay. Second point, whether you own the building or whether you're buying a building, use the IRS allowed cost segregation model rather than your traditional real estate gets depreciated at 29.5 years and land never gets depreciated. Use cost segregation to break it into 5, 7, 15-year lives, moving usually 30 to 50% of your value into much shorter depreciation schedules. You get a lot more tax depreciation. It doesn't affect your GAAP results. It's only on tax returns. You could, the beauty of this, if you haven't heard of it, I'll tell you why you haven't heard of it. You can't do it yourself for some legit reasons. You have to be certified to do facility cost or building code segregation. So if you didn't build the building and you don't have your bills of sale and your subcontractor bills, you can't swag it. Similarly, your CPA firm probably does not have construction certified experts on staff. And the CPAs will not spend the time to go get a senior auditor or manager certified because it's a once and done task. They can bill you for it. So the CPA firms don't offer it. Use a boutique expert. Don't use a big four. And the real beauty of it is if your building is 5 to 10 years old, it's the perfect time to do a one-time change in accounting for tax depreciation, totally allowed by the IRS, and you get a 5 to 10 year retro credit. I've done it, gotten multi-million-dollar credits because I joined the company at a 7 or 10-year-old building. I did it. It was an absolute no-brainer. Paid $75,000 to have the cost studies done and documented, submitted the change in accounting to the IRS, got a $1.7 million credit catch up. And then going forward, I was lower by several $100,000 a year in tax depreciation. So stuff you ought to know about that very few people do. Next point, very current topic. You're seeing oil bills, gas bills, price per kWh jumping all across the country. Just our sensitivity here in Eastern Pennsylvania. In January, commercial rates went up 33%. Residential rates went up 26%. Our utility, it serves half of Pennsylvania, just got approval to raise residential rates 26% on June 30th. 51% increases on homeowner power. Okay. And when you ask the power company, and we did a 2-hour session on this, they said the first increase was all related to more green, more renewable energy. Everybody wants us to be at 20% renewable. So to get that, we have to incent the hell out of companies, commercial scale solar farms on your roof of your warehouse, factory, school, hospital. So they basically raised everybody's rates 25 to 33% to give the money to commercial people. So tax residents got taxed to give the incentive to commercial size a raise. The simple point is utility convinced the company, the rate agency in Pennsylvania, residents will never move fast enough for us to double our green energy. So we have to make it worthwhile for businesses and large facilities to do it. New Jersey has just done the same thing. I'll get to something in a minute. So because of that, we've added this subchapter. First of all, first thing you need to do is understand what you're currently paying for. Most of us do not understand our power bill, gas bill, and waste disposal bills. And I added waste disposal because in a lot of states, waste is semi-regulated. They have to justify their increases. They have to act somewhat like a utility. Lots and lots of ways to reduce usage. Again, your plant manager is busy. Your terminal manager is busy. He's not going to figure out, do we need to put in time of day thermostats, automatic human detecting, motion detecting controls that turn lights on and off. You walk into your factory or warehouse at 8 o'clock in the morning, I bet every light is on because somebody walked in, flipped every switch, walking in the back door, and then turned the coffee pot on. So all of a sudden, all your air conditioners are on. You've set a peak for the day that's going to set your rate for the next 30 days. And you've got lights on in places where those people haven't used that office in months, and it's a warehouse you rarely go into. We have examples on there. We also have examples of some absolute game-changing disruptor technologies in insulation and in HVACs, 20, 30, 40% reductions in your HVAC usage and in your heating or cooling with state-of-the-art insulation. We got involved early helping this company. They were literally just named Tech Product of the Year 2 weeks ago. It's a disruptor in insulation. Coming back to, again, you don't know much about utilities and your bills, so get a baseline analysis done. Just understand what you're paying for, what your bill was designed on. You might be in a deregulated or semi-regulated state. Again, don't expect the utility company to tell you. Don't expect the gas provider to tell you. That it's your job to figure it out. And frankly, the only way to do it is get an advisor. Okay, we did a special topic on this a couple of weeks ago. We have 7 facilities being evaluated for solar right now within 30 miles of where I'm at right now. I just walked through that. I'll skip this slide. If you're in, here are the pro solar states. In other words, it is a no-brainer right now. If you're in District Columbia, Massachusetts, Hawaii, California, New Jersey, Illinois, Connecticut, or New York City, 3-year paybacks on capital investments for commercial grade solar. If you're in this next row of states, these half a dozen, I won't read them to you, strongly consider it. This is whether your headquarters is there, whether you've got an office there, a terminal, you've got commercial building, or you're a tenant there, encourage your landlord to do it, because these are no-brainer financial decisions. The next row of 6 or 7 states, they have incentives by the state and the utilities to make it worthwhile. We actually have some models available, Excel models that you can plug in and swag what the capital cost would be, what the savings, what the IRR would look like, drop in your own tax rate, drop in your current millage rate, and great partner to work with. And then we've also just identified and partnered with several financing partners who will gear the term and the interest rate and the whole terms of their loan payback to make sure you're cash flow positive as you invest in solar or geothermal or insulation projects. So, and the other nice part for all you CFOs out there, most of these are non-recourse, non-personal guarantee loans that use the energy infrastructure investment as collateral, so they don't screw up your bank covenants. So you can lay on specific debt that's non-recourse and outside of your covenants, because it's cash flow positive, because it's structured that way. And most of it's pretty low cost. It's at bank debt rates or maybe a point higher. So I think I'm just about on schedule, Paul. I'm losing my voice, so I must be about on schedule. The baseline number one reference or best practice we always have is don't expect your supplier to be your partner. Get an independent advisor. Good example. Don't trust the guy from Blue Cross or Aetna. Trust Paul Seeger. He'll be objective. He's on your side of the table. Same thing for, utilities. Same thing on solar, waste disposal, signing a lease. Again, don't trust your broker, whether he's selling your building or leasing you another property. He's working on a commission basis, getting paid by the owner of that building. So don't trust him. Don't expect your general counsel to be an expert in real estate or purchasing or energy. Use an expert. And again, it's not the job of your branch manager or plant manager. Somehow it's your job. So get over it and do your job. To learn more, there's our website portal, PCS portal. We made it pretty darn easy. When you go to the portal, we put the password right under the password box, so you can't forget the password. It's PCS22, and we put it in bold type right where you type it in. When you go there, you can see anything we've done in the last 8 years, and you can surf around. There's my contact information. We're almost always on the 3rd Wednesday of the month, although sometimes we do the 3rd Friday, depending on my schedule, to be honest. So, Paul, just any chats out there? I'm going a mile a minute. Anything for the good of the organization here?
don't have any chats to answer. If anybody has a question, feel free to populate it. And I will also make sure we get a good follow-up email out to everybody that makes it easy to find Gary, easy to get to the site, and easy to find me if you'd like to talk to me.
If you can't find me, you're not looking very hard. Connect with me on LinkedIn. CFO Solution pops up, and it's an interesting business model. We give away our collective knowledge to our peers. Short story is we pay it forward. We've all benefited from advice in our careers. We all owe it to the next generation of CFOs. We're all old guys. So we in our semi-retirement years, we've created this to pay it forward, and we're having fun. And frankly, we learn stuff from you folks every day. If you have best practice, if you have a partner that you really respect and you think we should know about, we're glad to meet your friends. We want to meet upper quartile people, not your friends, upper quartile friends. So with that, Paul, no chats. I'll sign off and wish everybody well, and we'll see you in about a month.
Thanks as always for your time, Gary.
You bet.
Happy to spend the time with everyone that joined. We'll be talking soon.